Who is the best player you could trade the number 1 pick in the 2024 NBA draft for? I find this like utterly fascinating, like across the board to me. I love everything about this question. I've been trying to think about this for like the last 24 hours. I think I have my answer and it's like very specific, but I would love to hear yours before we go.
I don't have an answer. Like I just came up with names and I wanted to see how quickly you would tell me no. And I think the best thing I came up with is could these guys be the start, like the 85% of a trade? And then could the number 1 pick be 85% of the return for any of these guys? But like, I don't think I would trade. I think where I got to is I don't think I would trade any of these guys. And then I got to a point of guys where I'm like, well, I probably wouldn't trade the number 1 pick for these guys. Like I would rather just go ahead and take my pick with Alex Sarr or Risa Shea or Cody Williams or whoever it is and just take my chance. Now there's always some team context in that. Or would you even come close to trading any of the names I put on the list on the doc?
Yes, there is one specific name here that I quite like, that I find interesting. So you brought up Jared Allen.
I would say that's probably a no, but
no for who?
I don't think the Cavs would trade Jared Allen, right?
Let's say that they lose in the first round or something like that.
Okay, that's
and
true.
We're in the situation where Donovan Mitchell is like leaving or something.
We're post playoffs. Yep.
They like make the second round, but they find that like the Jared Allen, Evan Mobley fit isn't really working. Okay. And Memphis gets the number 1 overall pick after having just traded Steven Adams to Houston.
Okay. That's interesting.
If you're Memphis, would you do the number 1 overall pick for Jared Allen, knowing that that is like a perfect fit next to Jaren Jackson, a perfect fit next to Ja Morant, the interior presence that they could kind of use, like that makes you a top 5 defense for sure. Probably, honestly, it probably makes them the number 1 defense in the league. You have Jared Allen next to Jaren Jackson, and you have Marcus Smart. That's the kind of defensive infrastructure you need around Ja Morant.
I can get behind that a little bit.
But I think these situations are like very specific kind of.
Yeah.
If we're talking about it, right? Like it's a deal where you're trying to figure out, is there a situation that would move the pick as opposed to like the exact team? So like if you're Detroit, let's say, is there anybody you would move this pick for? Like, would you move this pick for Brandon Ingram?
So that's the one,
the core piece.
So that's the one I brought up. Like that's the one that but I don't think that gets there. So Mike, my process was, could this plus whatever else you need get you to Brandon Ingram? Now, like, I mean, the thing is, like, are the Pistons even close enough to be really making that move? I don't know. But I mean, at some point you got to try something or you got to start all over. So do you bring in somebody talented like that would fit in on the wing? Like maybe, but I don't think the Pelicans are trading Ingram just for the number 1 pick.
I think it's a great question. Like, could you do, if you're the Pelicans and you really liked, Alex Sarr as a fit next to Zion Williamson, right? Like, do you think that getting 4 cost-controlled years of Alex Sarr is better than 1 year remaining of Brandon Ingram, who is extension eligible this summer? But like, if you're them, like, how great do you feel about giving him an extension, next to Zion? How do you feel about Zion Williamson being the guy that you build around? Do you try to move Zion instead of Brandon? Like, there's, a number of different factors here that I think are eminently fascinating. I think Ingram is an interesting name.
And going back to Allen real quick, somebody brought up Dirty Dancer. Jarrett Allen's on a really good contract right now. He also only has 2 years left on that contract. So you get him at 20 million for 2 more years, and then you're going to have to pay up where the number one pick, yes, is a substantial amount, but it's cost controlled, for longer than that at a smaller number.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to look at teams that are like closing in on the second apron, kind of. Is there a chance that Jaylen Brown, if Boston was to like lose early in the playoffs, like if they were to lose in the second round or something, and that extension kicks in and they think that they need to make like some sort of shakeup?
So that's so interesting, right? Because as a player, it's a no-brainer. But again, just use the Pistons. Whoever, you can be whatever team. Like, do you want to take on that contract with where you're at? Is that worth it? How far can you get now? Like, I think it comes down to how much you believe in your young. Like, if you're the Spurs, do you do that? Do you go pair him with Victor Wembanyama and think that you can really fast track this thing? So I think that's where it becomes really interesting, because now all of a sudden you have $60 million on your book. So the player for player trade is like you absolutely do it, but that contract is such a huge factor. Like somebody brought up Cat way earlier, and it's like Cat's market, if it ends up coming to that, is going to be fascinating because of what his contract is. Like that's so much money. And so you got to find the right team to have that has the money, but is also ready to contend and compete. And does that type of team, a team that's not there yet, do they want to have that type of money on their books?
Yeah. I think it would cost more than the number one pick in this draft to get Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
Still, I do. I think that Boston would ask for more. Like if it was Washington, but here's the thing, you have to salary match too, right? Like unless you have cap space, you have to salary match.
So that's where the Pistons,
you're going to get other things back too. The Pistons could just literally do number one.
Yep.
But I think that Boston would want more than that.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Jaylen Brown.
I just wonder, like, how valuable is that to Boston? Then, do you want the salary match back? Do you not? We actually talked with Keith Smith about this recently. Just kind of the pros and cons of matching that salary or not. If the Pistons do, like, that's my thing, I guess. If the Pistons are going to make a big swing anyway this summer, a team like that, then if they could go get somebody for the number one pick, it makes sense to me. Like if they're going to go do it, I'd rather them get a real player, right? Like a Jaylen Brown, a Brandon Ingram, and not just like waste money in free agency. I would rather them use the number one pick because as we've talked about, it may not be like a face of the franchise type player. I'd rather them use that and get a real dude, like a dude that can really play. I would rather them do that than take a chance on somebody in free agency, overpay, and maybe that guy's really good, but maybe that guy's not.
Okay, next question. My answer to this is like very team specific. It'd be like if Memphis got number one, like maybe you could see like a Jarrett Allen move. And if you're Cleveland, like if you're gonna keep Donovan Mitchell, it means you're gonna keep him at a larger number. You're going to be coming into Evan Mobley being, very, very expensive after his extension. Maybe you do want like a cost controlled kind of player, like a, Zach Rizzachet who can play on the wing and can be like a shot maker next to your Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell backcourt with Evan Mobley, right? Like something like that. I think is interesting.
That's why I've actually put Garland in there for what if the Spurs wanted to trade the number one pick and bring in Garland to be that backcourt guy. And then if you're the Cavs, maybe you still believe in Mobley and Allen, but you're turning the backcourt over to Mitchell. You trade Garland to the Spurs, and then you draft Rizzachet to play on the wing. And I thought maybe that was one that would make sense for both teams.
I actually kind of dig that one too. That's interesting.
That was actually probably my favorite one where I like worked out the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, is Trae Young an answer here?
Okay. So I didn't put him in there. I don't think it gets it done just the pick, but again, can it get you to 75, 80% of what you would need to send out?
Yeah. I think it would be more like, I think it would cost more than number one in this draft to get Trae Young, But like if we're including just like moving the pick for a player, like Trae Young's an interesting one, if
Yeah.
especially if San Antonio was to get
The
number one.
Spurs,
Like
right? Like just right back
that's
to
a
it. Yeah.
fantastic idea. Yeah.
Yeah.